Thank you so much for joining me today. And I just want to start off with, the pretty simple question, the question that every magician gets asked so many times in their career. But how did you two actually start magic? Did you start together? Or did you start separate and then come together? Yours, I guess, will be a little bit different of a story.
We started separately, but we didn't really get into magic until we were 20. We knew each other before then. We were at university studying for science degrees, but we did a lot of AmDram, a lot of student theatre together.
Yeah, we met doing a play, did that, started doing plays together, both got into magic, sort of.
And then the next natural step was we were doing plays together, we were both doing magic, so why not try and do magic shows together?
So we did our first magic show within about a year of picking up magic.
Yeah, if that really. I never looked back, and that was that. So that was a pretty simple origin, really. We didn't spend hours down a library searching for magic books. We looked it all up on YouTube.
Yeah, I love the first trip on YouTube.
We did it the sensible way.
Yeah. And has your style evolved greatly, or did you start as Morgan and West?
I mean, we have always been a double act.
Mm-hmm.
We've done the odd solo gig when one of us is busy, but pretty much we have always been two guys doing magic together. We weren't two magicians who went, oh, we should team up because I do this and you do this. We started together.
And the first show, the vibe, we thought we were very erudite and very clever, and we quickly abandoned that. The Victorian thing was always on the cards from the word go. And then our second Edinburgh Fringe, we added the adjective time travelling, because that then gave us the license of, it was a bit confusing of, were we in the future, were the audience in the past, how did the Victorian thing work? So
by being time travelers, we just sort of, it doesn't actually explain anything, just fudged it. It goes, well, we're time travelers, isn't it?
It's fine, isn't it? Oh, you can't use a mobile phone, time travelers, mate. Time travelers.
Yeah.
So that was that. And the style's kind of, it certainly evolved over the years. We got a director on board in 2012, and that kind of shaped things a lot more. But our kids shows are more technicolor, we say, than our evening shows. It's all a bit silly and a bit clever.
Yeah, and very theatrical.
Yeah.
We've always liked that, though. We met doing theatre.
Yeah, and I love that you guys are so theatrical. I've watched both of your Penguin lectures, and I forget which one, but on one of them you say, in the magic world, you're known for your code work, but in sort of the layperson world, you're known for your kind of over-the-top, silly, scripted bits, and that's one of the things, personally, that I love about you guys. And you just mentioned working with a director. How did that sort of shape your act, or did you already do those scripted bits because you came from theater?
We were always very scripted, but when we first were writing shows, we never really differentiate between our characters. We were just sort of two Victorian people, and
so we used to write scripts by writing a script and then sort of divvying up the lines, which is not a good way to write for two people.
No, because the interesting thing in any performance is your relationship with other people and your relationship with the audience and your relationship with each other. You don't have a relationship with the other person when the other person is a clone of you. So working initially with our director Poppy, who was the first director we worked with, we spent a lot of time just working out the different, who we are as characters and how our characters differ from one another. So now when we write stuff, we know exactly what Mr. Morgan would say, and we know exactly what Mr. West would say. We know what their characters are like, and so it's very easy to write for them because we know them so well.
And
it's like in that way, to be a Simpsons writer, they have a big back catalogue of stuff that Homer Simpson has done, and so you know the character you're writing for. It's that same thing of we have built these characters over so long that when we write a script comes very easily, not very easily, but it's very easy for us to start a first draft of a script because we know what point of view our characters come from.
And how has your own relationship with your own character changed over the years?
We've always seen sort of characters like a suit of armor you wear when performing, because they're not us. Obviously, there is shades of us within them.
So personally, for me, I find Mr. Morgan to be a very different person to who I am. I stand very differently. I sound very different. I walk very differently. I interact with people.
50% of the time, Mr. Morgan's a complete idiot.
Oh yeah, 50% of the time, Mr. Morgan's a complete idiot. But also, kind of I interact with people in a very different way as well when I am being Mr. Morgan either on stage or sort of in the meet and greet afterwards, as it were. Yeah, so they're just different people, I think, these days, aren't they?
Yeah, they're
different people that we know very, very well.
They're their own entities, and I think it is one of the strange things, I think, when people meet us in real life, especially when they've seen our work, is that they forget that it's an act, and so we're not like that in real life.
Yeah, in real life we're very, very different, and so people kind of expect us to still be wearing like three-piece suits and kind of, oh, hello there, and all that sort of thing, whereas actually we just turn up in jeans and a hoodie and look very slovenly and are kind of quite monosyllabic about what we say half the time. And very quiet.
It's like cosplayers always think we're cosplayers.
Yeah.
Because we wear a lot of costume and we make costume and we do a lot of that kind of stuff. They assume that in our spare time we cosplay. It's like, well, no, it's my job. I do living. It's the last thing I want to do in my spare time.
In the same way, to be perfectly honest, that a lot of magicians assume that we do a lot of magic in our spare time, or that we know a lot about magic tricks and all that sort of thing. And we do by function of the job that we do. But things like, I haven't done a double lift in best part 2 years, I think. I don't know what I'm doing with cards anymore, you know.
That's great. But yeah, when you mentioned that people are surprised when you're not in the Victorian three-piece suits, and I think that's funny. Because I've talked to Matt King and I've talked to Piff about it. They're always surprised, when he's not in that plaid suit or when Piff's not in that dragon costume. It's like, yeah, it's an act.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I can't imagine anything less real than seeing John in like his jeans and his shirt kind of thing. You know?
But working with the script, you even mentioned that sometimes with the script you'll just get an applause for a very scripted piece, like you have the whole the brace position, the ace position, that whole thing.
People like so again we are
it's the same thing as getting an applause for a lyrically tight song in a musical or something like that as well performed. It's not an applause for the piece of script, it's an applause for the thing as a whole, the holistic view of it. You're sat there as an audience watching it and you go, I appreciate the fact that they've written this, they've thought it through, it's nicely written, they're doing it very well, and it's funny. Well done, everyone. You don't get applause for it every time.
Right.
But you do sometimes, and that's nice. Applause is just an audience telling you that they've enjoyed something.
Yeah.
A lot of magicians confuse an applause as something that is demanded of an audience. So, like, if you see someone, excuse me, that weird look you get, particularly with manipulation acts, where they'll make something appear and then they'll kind of look at the audience and do a little mini bow as if to say,
time to clap now.
Time to clap.
Yes.
Or the way people put like real stock by a standing ovation, where it was like, oh, tonight I got a standing ovation, got one last night as well. I always get standing ovations. And it's kind of like, well,
who cares?
Who cares? If you're not, if it's given freely and with intent by the audience, as in laughter or applause or gasps or standing ovations, that means something. If it's given because you've asked for it, or it's given because you've engineered a situation where it's probably going to happen, don't mean nothing.
No.
It's absolutely worthless. And all it does is serve to boost your own ego. And you kind of already stood on stage. You don't really need that ego boost. What you need people to genuinely appreciate it, because otherwise you might be stood on stage now, but if people don't care about it that much, you're not going to be there next week.
Exactly. A big part of it, talking about ego, like one of the things that we sort of aim for in our magic is that I want my ego to be based on things that I can really do. In that, I think a lot of magicians, when they talk about like why is your act good, and they talk about, well, I can read minds and I can do this and I can make this. But yeah, but taking out all the things that aren't actually real, what is actually good about your act? And if you've got nothing, then you're not a good act. Like so the thing that makes our act good is that it's well written and it looks nice and it's tightly rehearsed, and that's what makes our act good. Obviously, the magic is good, and we don't believe that. I'm not saying that you should be able to remove the magic.
The other end of the extreme is like someone like Ben Earl, for example. Like Ben Earl is very personable and he comes across on screen, on stage very well, but what's the main thing that's good about Ben Earl's act is his incredible sleight of hand.
Yeah, he'll mess you up.
And it's kind of, you have to pursue the extremes. You can't just be kind of like all right at everything, otherwise it doesn't really get you anywhere. because everyone can be all right at anything.
Definitely. And one thing you guys are incredible at is the scripting. I know I've talked about it a lot already, but how do you go about just starting that process? Do you get an idea first, or will you just sit down and kind of go until you think of something?
So we talk for days and days and days about if we've got an idea for a trick. First of all, an idea has to happen. Be that we've got a particular magic effect that we want to achieve, or that we've got an idea for a thing to happen, sort of a theatrical idea, and then we spend days talking about it, and sometimes we'll abandon it halfway through talking about it.
At least half the time when talking about a new effect, we will talk about it in the van for a few days and then go, you know what, I don't actually think this is worth doing. But after that, essentially, we'll just talk about it and the idea of it and boiling it down to the crux of what the trick is. And then we essentially just sit down and write. You just kind of just start writing and see where it takes you. Like, writing is a skill like any other skill, and it's something you get better at.
Mm-hmm.
So when we first started out, I used to sit in my bedroom at university and write long scripts for magic tricks that I never did, but just the practice of writing them. And it was always pompous nonsense. But the point is that, like, I think people in magic kind of assume that there's like, oh, if there's this one weird tip to help you write good scripts, and that's not how it works. You just start writing script for your stuff, and then
find what works for you.
Find what works for you. Find a voice that works for your character. Find a style of performance and a style of delivery that you like and that fits with you, and you keep doing it until it becomes very natural. I know how Morgan and West would approach anything because we've written for Morgan and West so much. So it means we can do shows that are very out there and stuff, and like we do a Christmas show, which is a version of A Christmas Carol with just the two of us.
Well, that's fun.
And it's really good fun. It's a big, very silly, fun family show. But the point is that comes from a place of knowing our characters so well that we know the relationship between them, and therefore we know how to write. We know how to write for us. Right. And I think sort of a lot of the reason magicians get very samey with their material, and a lot of magicians, like a lot of mentalists, sound like Darren, is because they never spend any time trying to write new stuff. So when it comes to writing a script, the only thing they can think of is stuff that Darren has said.
Right.
Whereas if you just actively try to not sound like that, your first few guys might not be very good, but eventually you will develop your own style.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that definitely plagues a lot of magicians, especially people just starting out, where they'll get a new trick and they want to perform it right away, so they'll just say whatever pattern comes along with the trick or something they've seen someone do before, and then that works for them. Oh, definitely. But then when you want to go to the theater, you should probably change it up.
Well, like when we started out, we, like everyone else around us, was a Darren clone, but we were just a two-voiced Darren clone for a little while. You find your own voice, and your character is a big part of that, and finding out what an audience likes as well. That's a huge part of it.
Yeah, when our first magic show, which was a bit rubbish, was just really trying to sound smart, and it was a bit up itself, but it was rubbish. And then there's one thing we did in the middle, where we had like a tea break, and we did like a cups and balls with sugar cubes and teacups and stuff. Mm-hmm. And everyone that came to see the show was like, "That's you. That is the best bit." And so when we then took a version of that show to Edinburgh, we basically went, "Okay, let's do the whole show in that style. Like far less serious, far more playful, far more slightly childish," and that really worked for us.
Mm-hmm. How was the whole Edinburgh experience?
I mean, we've done Edinburgh for many, many years.
Yeah, so we did it in various forms from 2007 through 2017. So we did it 11 years in a row. We took a year off this year because we didn't have anything new that we wanted to do, and we wanted a break. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's crazy. It's full on. It's really interesting. You get out of it what you want to put into it. So if you want to go and have a big party for a month, you can go and have a big party for a month. If you want to go and work really, really hard for a month, you can go and work really hard for a month, and anything in between. It's literally you get out of it what you want.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it's a great opportunity to do the same show 25 times in one same room. Like that is a huge learning experience. It's obviously a very expensive thing to do and a very tiring thing to do, but we can trace everything that we do now back to starting on the Fringe, essentially. all our early opportunities came from the Fringe, and we just kept going back and until essentially we are now at the point in our career where we don't need to go.
Mm-hmm.
We probably still will. We probably will go back next year, but it is no longer a thing where we feel like we have to go and do new stuff at Edinburgh every year. We have enough work and have enough opportunities that is just something we only do if we want to.
Right. But how do you go from just practicing magic together, writing a show, performing it at your student... Yeah, how do you go from performing shows at you said at your university?
Yeah, there's a lot of student theatre where we went to
theatre.
university. So we just sort of, there were like little studio 50-seat spaces where you could do stuff.
Right. So how do you go from that and then get to Edinburgh and then kind of, I've looked at your website and it looks like you perform at theatres pretty much, is that?
Yeah, we are a theatrical act. We are essentially we are a touring theatre company.
So the touring scene in the UK is very, very different to the touring scene in the US. So in the UK there are lots of art centres which on the US scale of things are laughably close together. But on the British scale are far apart. And they're all sort of rooms from anything from 100 seats to about 400 or 500 seats. And you can kind of go and sort of do your shows in those, and they'll pay you to come and do the shows there. Whereas I know in the US it's a bit of a different model a lot of the time.
You tend to fall wall in the US a lot more.
Definitely.
It started.
I mean, part of it was honestly we decided to go to the Fringe. Like we always say to people that sort of, if you want to, lots of people say to us, in the next 5 years I want to do a stage show. I'm like, well, what's going to change in 5 years' time that will suddenly mean you can do a stage show? Like, you only learn by doing. So we just applied for a slot at the Fringe and got it, and therefore had to go and do it. I mean, that's how you start doing it. You start doing it.
Obviously, there's like financial implications of that as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you've got to understand
Definitely.
that we come from a place of white middle-class male privilege.
Yes.
So we could afford to we didn't have to work over the summer. We could afford to put our student loans into going to Edinburgh.
And if we'd have lost all those student loans, it would have been a problem, but it wouldn't have been an enormous problem, kind of thing, you know?
Right.
But in Britain as well, we also started out on something called the rural touring circuit. Essentially, village halls up and down the country for a while, about 10 years ago, had pots of money given to them by various arts organisations to bring professional companies into the village halls. And we spent years and years and years doing that for a small amount of money per show.
Yeah, we would, and this would be where you would drive 3 or 4 hours to a venue, do a show that was 90 minutes long with an interval, drive 3 or 4 hours to about 40 people or less in a village hall under strip lighting, no stage, drive 3 or 4 hours home, and you get paid like 400 quid for that.
Right.
But it let you do the show, and you got used to different situations and used to the show itself, and you evolved things, and
that's why you get good. All those slightly dodgy venues are where when you suddenly have to deal with the fact that you don't have stage lighting, or or the audience aren't where you thought they were going to be. That's where you learn.
You're now half surrounded, or there's no real way up onto the stage, or the stage is actually 1.5 meters square. And
so everyone's very close together. That's where you learn all the techniques that you're going to need when you go and do this. We often see magicians, especially if they've had a bit of success on TV or whatever, that will go and the first stage show they do, they'll do it in a 1,000-seat room on a huge, 15-meter wide stage, and they just look lost, because if you've got no stage experience, that's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, one of my first stage shows, I do a lot of comedy clubs now, but my first stage show is sort of similar to that. I don't know how I got this deal, but it was a 400-seat theater, and I sold maybe 9 tickets. Not maybe, I sold 9 tickets.
There is a mistaken belief among people that don't work in the theatre industry. People assume that there are certain venues that if you get into that venue, people will come and see you just because you're at that venue, and that's not true.
It is not.
You're in that venue because you can probably sell tickets. And so you will find these people that book themselves into a big room and no one comes, and they're like, why did no one come? It's like, because no one's ever heard of you.
Right.
And we still get situations with us where no one comes.
Oh yeah, we regularly.
Us.
So over the course of the last week or so, we have performed to an audience of 500, an audience of 200, an audience of maybe 60, maybe 40.
Yeah.
All in different sized rooms. Same show. Same material, same promotion, same everything. Just that's the reality. I think people assume that there's like, once you get to that level, once you're getting to places where you can sell 500 tickets somewhere, that you will sell 500 tickets everywhere. But that's not true. It depends on the audience, depends on the relationship that audience has with the venue, whether it's the location it is, and the socioeconomic condition of that location, and so many other, and the time of year, and the weather, and so many other things that you just kind of it's very up and down, this industry.
Definitely. And just anecdotally, I know there are places that I can go and sell tickets, but there are also places I can go and I will have to work a lot harder to sell tickets.
Yeah. And that's what you learn.
Mm-hmm. And
you learn where your audience is and how to access them.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're in the fortunate position now where we have good relationships with sufficient numbers of venues that if we go somewhere a few years in a row and our audience doesn't build, we just won't go back.
Right.
But that's because we've been doing this so long that we have a lot of venues we can go to. When we first started out, we'd go anywhere for any number of people.
Mm-hmm.
We have driven hours and hours and hours to play for 7 people before.
Right.
And because you can't say no early in your career, and the stage time is more important than your ego, essentially.
Yeah. And do you guys do like private corporate stuff or private parties or anything, or is it pretty much all just stage in the theaters?
The vast majority of our work is theatres.
Yeah, we're available for those things. We do them occasionally. It's very dependent on who hires us,
Yeah, we do the odd corporate work. We do the odd private party and thing.
Part of the thing is, if you want us to come and do a private party on a Friday night, you've got to be able to pay us as much as a 300-seat theatre that might be full would give us.
That's the thing.
Definitely.
And also, theatre books quite a long way in advance.
Mm-hmm.
So often we get around Christmas time, we'll have corporate inquiries come in for Saturdays 2 months in advance, and we'll be like, I've been booked for that Saturday for 9 months.
Right.
Because just the time scale is different.
Yeah.
But we do that work, but our goal has always been to perform live and perform for a paying lay audience.
For an audience who wants to see you rather than an audience that you're kind of brought to.
Yeah, and honestly, we have always been of the opinion that I would rather play to 50 people that are there to see Morgan and West than play to 500 people who are just there to see whatever is on in this cabaret show,
Right.
Like, having our own name above the door has always been a big thing for us.
Mm-hmm. And it seems it's working out well for you guys.
Yeah, we do okay.
Yeah.
We're doing okay. Like, it's been a long road.
It's been a long road. 7 years ago, we gave up teaching jobs. So it's been a long road.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys, you use your education degrees, or your degrees in your magic act. Is that correct? What are your degrees in again? I remember.
So Chris's got a degree in physics, and I've got a degree in chemistry.
Physics and chemistry. That's right.
We don't use that. I mean, there is one moment.
That one thing with the colors.
Yeah, that is literally the only piece of chemistry I've ever done since leaving university.
We do have a trip vaguely about Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, but I can't solve a wave equation to save my life anymore. So,
yeah. But at the same time, like some of our stuff does, we do make, like in some of our material, we have sort of smart sciencey jokes and stuff, and we really believe that if you're going to write a magic trick about something, you need to really know what that stuff is about and not just have looked it up on Wikipedia. And so we have a routine called True and False, which references Schrodinger's cat and references the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and also references the fact that it is a crude analog of that. And actually, that kind of like pop science thing is a fairly common bit of patter for magicians.
Right.
But we really often hear it with people that are completely misusing it. And have completely misunderstood what that is, because
it really winds us up.
It really winds us up because it's a thing of, I think an audience can tell if you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like somebody writing a physics joke and just the punchline is velocity because they know that word.
And it is the same thing when you get mentalists that talk about philosophy or psychology and just clearly don't know what it is they're talking about beyond like a very cursory reading.
Right.
Like, name of this famous philosopher once said. Blah, blah, blah. Like, and sort of we have a friend who's a mentalist who is actually a professional psychologist in his day job. And there is someone who can talk about psychology at length. It's not super interesting, but you can tell when he talks about psychology that he actually knows what he's talking about because he's actually a psychologist.
Right.
rather than the, everyone's watered down, Darren-y psychobabble that they use as their mentors in the patter.
Definitely. And just to kind of switch topics, you mentioned a couple times that you are a family show. Now, even your children's show is not just for children's, because the Penguin Live act that you did, you said that is your working material, and you do a bullet catch in there.
I mean, we sort of do a bullet catch. We do.
You do yeah.
So everything we do is family friendly. As in, anyone of any age can come to any of our shows. Our evening shows we tend to recommend sort of like 10 or 11 plus because it's a lot of mind reading and kids don't get mind reading.
Right.
Our kids shows we say 5 plus. And the whole aim of the kids shows is to have a show that is enjoyable to kids and older kids and their parents and families and the grandparents. There's something for everyone there, so that as a family they can bond over the show, like a good piece of kids theatre or a good kids TV program that's got something for everyone.
We're big fans of the early series of Simpsons,
where there's funnies for all.
Well, Simpsons, up until about season 10, Simpsons was really well written and you could enjoy it as a child. And when you watch that same episode as an adult, you just go, I didn't get half of these jokes. And especially because we don't do kids parties, we do kids theatres. Half of your audience is adults.
Right.
So it's madness to not try and appeal to that half of the audience. And we've often, in Edinburgh, when we're flying or whatever, we've seen adults leaving kids' shows looking interminably bored. Because there's like, oh my God, it was just so asinine and happy and bland. And we're like, well, why don't I want people to do that from our show? I want adults to want to come back and see our show. And so we've had kids when we've done Edinburgh runs that have seen our show 3 or 4 times and their parents have brought them back every time.
By the third time you're apologising.
Yeah, by the third time we're like, I'm really sorry you have to watch this again. But at least it's funny and at least it's engaging. And also the tricks we do are strong. We do strong magic in our kids' show. We do a Awakening Soaring in Half in our kids' material. We do a Sub-Trunk in our kids' show.
Oh, wow.
Because there's no reason the magic should be... Like, kids' magic shouldn't mean bad magic.
Definitely.
Like, kids aren't easy to fool. Kids are easy, or kids are as hard to fool as an adult is. So you might as well...
Harder.
Exactly. So you might as well do material that will also fool the adults.
Yeah. Well, no, we do a bullet catch in a kids' show because why not?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an actual bullet catch, and some would argue that there's no actual bullet catch out there, kind of thing. You know, it's a bit of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's nonsense.
I think it's great.
It's Tom Stone. Tom Stone idea. It's an idea from Tom Stone.
I mean, it's a cursory one-liner from Tom Stone.
Like literally, in I believe, the Vortex, he mentions the idea of wouldn't it be funny to do a bullet catch trick where you're using one of those comedy bang guns?
Right,
it's not written up. That's all he says. And we were like, that is a good idea. We should write that up. And so we wrote that trick.
Yeah, it's I was watching the lecture and you pulled that out. I'm like, are they going to? They are. It was great, and I love that you guys don't pull back on your magic, even though you're performing for children. I think that's amazing.
You can't.
Well, you can't. Again, like we say, half your audience is adults. I don't want the audience to leave it. When someone goes home to their friends or their partner or whatever, and with the kids, and say, how was the show? I don't want that person to say, the kids enjoyed it. It was obviously kind of stupid and rubbish. I want them to say, you know what? It was actually really funny. The magic was really good. When they come back next year, we should take the kids again, and this time you should come with me. So now, for our kids shows, we will get entire families coming with one child.
Which is fiscally great.
Yeah, because adult tickets pay more than child tickets. So we will get 4 adults and 1 child.
Yeah. And that's awesome. And just to jump topics again, we've talked about kind of your show, about scripting and character, and I just wanted to talk about the thing you're known for in the magic community now, which is your code work. How do you come up with that sort of stuff? Do you just sit down and kind of write for the situation, or do you have...
Yeah, no, exactly that. It's exactly that. So essentially, the way you write a coding trick, I mean, there's a lot more detail about this on either our notes that you can buy directly from us or from on the DVD Decoded.
I have Decoded. I've just seen the first DVD, but great plug to everyone out listening to this. Decoded is fantastic. I have performed just some of the stuff on the first DVD, which is magic you can teach to your friends in 5 minutes, and I've had so much fun with that, teaching my non-magician friends how to tell if a card is red or black.
Yeah, people love that.
Great.
People love that stuff. And the thing is, because we're not a second sight act. So
Right.
Tom and Emily or the Eversons or the Aronsons, they're second sight acts where their whole act is...
And so they've got to have open things that they can adapt to any situation.
Right.
Because they are doing, audience member holds something up, they tell them what it is and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Whereas our whole thing is all of the coding tricks that we actually do in for performance, they're so situational on stage that the way you write them is you write a script as if you could really do it, and then you go back and you go, where can I put some code in?
How many options are there? 8. Right, I've got 8 options to set that I can be able to say. So I need to find 8 ways of saying this line. Because all code work is the recognition of difference in your partner. So whether it's the recognition of difference in terms of they say something differently, or they stand somewhere different, or they do something different with a part of their body, like if you can recognize that difference, you can use that to transmit a code to someone. And so it needn't be complicated. It can be one thing or the other. It can be one of 3 options or one of 5 options.
Mm-hmm.
And the sort of skill to it is first in writing material that doesn't feel like it's very limited in its options. So it doesn't feel like, well, it's one of those 2 things. That's not very impressive.
Right.
And also then in making it so that the delivery of the code is very natural. We're not the fastest code act in the world. We don't have the biggest lexicon in the world in terms of things we can code. But we are, I think at least, one of the most natural code acts.
Yeah,
I
would agree.
Even when you sort of, people have said about the decoded DVD when they listen to the method, they're like, even when you know what we're doing, even when you know that I'm coding, you can't hear it because it feels very natural what we're saying. Mm-hmm. And that's what we aim to do with our work, because it is, in our material, we do like 1 code trick per show.
Right.
It's that. So it's not like half our stuff is code. Most of our stuff is conjuring. But we do the odd, but like our signature pieces are kind of our code pieces, because that's the stuff that magicians want to see. And so in the community, that's the stuff we get asked to do.
Right. And you've done 2 coding pieces on Penn and Teller. Is that correct? Or was the first one... Well, I'll get into methods, so...
I don't care about getting into methods, it's code.
Okay.
I'm telling you. But it technically be like 3, so we did the pilot of... when John Archer and Ben Earl fooled them the very first episode?
Yes.
That was the pilot episode. They filmed 9 acts and showed 6 acts.
And we were one of the ones that they filmed.
We were one of the ones they filmed and didn't show.
Gotcha.
So when it went to series, they came, have you got another idea? And when it went to series, we were very young. We hadn't really done magic for very long. We were still teachers. And we were like, yes, we've got an idea. And so we wrote a trick specifically to do it. It's a trick that uses a mix of different methods.
It's a very complicated code.
It's all sorts going on. It took us 4 months, 3 hours a night, for 4 months to practice to be able to get it invisible and smooth.
And get at the speed we got it. Because
it's one of those few tricks where genuinely it's one of those where kind of a magician goes, I've been practicing for billions of hours for this. We actually have
about 4 months.
Right.
And we did it for that show and that show only. We've never done it again. In fact, the props are now in it somewhere.
Yeah, we threw the props away because it's not a good trick.
No, we hate it. We did it to try and fool them, and we fooled them. So that was good.
Job done.
So then we went back on again this year to kind of turn up and kind of go, look, we have come a long way as an act in 7 years. Look how much better we are now, and that sort of thing.
Right.
And that one, we didn't want to do the code stuff.
Yeah, we wanted to do something else, and but because we'd done the coin drop and the bank card on TV in Braden, they were like, we want you to do that because we know it works on TV. And we really pushed for something else, and they went, no, we want that. And we're like, oh, we actually showed them this in the pilot episode, but no, never mind. We knew we didn't get them.
Yeah.
So we just wanted a different TV clip because we already have a TV clip for the coin drop. But actually, I'm kind of proud that we did it. It was nice.
It went really well.
It's nice to have a clip of it with a drug, because in America we use driving licenses, not bank cards, which gives us some extra details we can use. My favorite thing in the world is reading the comments on the YouTube videos. Like
I become a bit obsessed with that.
the
recently.
methods people think we use are so much more complicated than the methods we use.
Right.
Like ones where it's like, the change was like $2.42, and they're like, so in between saying his name here and saying his name here, he says 42 words.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I love the idea that I'm there on stage, seamlessly counting words as I deliver my script, and manage to land exactly at I just love how smart they think we are.
Right.
Like, it's so entertaining, and
Yeah.
just all the bonkers methods that people come up with, and every now and then someone will absolutely nail it, and someone will be like, no, it's this. A layperson can come up with 8 million methods for every trick. We often say that if someone asks us how a trick is done, back when you used to do close-up and stuff, one of the things we would say is, you know how it's done. Just think of all of the possible ways. One of them's correct.
Yeah, I guess so.
And that is, and not necessarily the way they think is most likely, but one of the ways is
one
the
of
right
the ways. Yeah, there's only a certain number of ways everything could be done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so many people have asked me to ask this, and if you don't want to answer it, that's fine, but what do you guys think about the whole deck switch thing on Fool Us?
So
that was specific to that. I mean,
the video, so the one that they aired,
Right.
is edited in such a way to create a minor bit of controversy, because in the first series of the show, they didn't really know what the tone of the show was, and it was edited for a British audience. I'm pretty sure if we did exactly the same thing again and they re-edited the raw footage for an American audience, it would edit differently.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't bother with it.
Because if anything, because a lot of people have said to us after that, we got quite a lot of hate for that, because they were like, you cheated, and have you noticed that Penn and Teller didn't come up and shake their hands at the end? And we were like, well, they did, I was there.
Yeah, it happened. It's just
The room were on their feet, and Penn and Teller came up and shook our hands and chatted to us.
Yeah.
It's just that they cut it down in the edit to make it look like there's some sort of argument, because that's better TV.
So there is no deck switch.
I'm copying 8 cards on the bottom. That's what I'm doing there.
Because otherwise I can't know the mate. The only way I can know the last ones without Rob doing anything is it's got to be a stack. So 8 get added on the bottom, the rest get shuffled. Incredibly complicated code. He cuts to a certain place, and then Rob codes to me where he's ended up in the thing,
and then we run from there. But and we knew that would look like a thing, because if you think about it, in the early series of Penn and Teller, everyone that falls them falls them on technicality. Everyone does. It's not that Penn and Teller have no idea. It's that Penn and Teller kind of go, well, I think it's this, and the person goes, no, it's not that, and they go, well, you fooled us. Like Matthew Bish, I think you've got 2 decks, and he goes, no, I haven't got 2 decks. Penn and Teller know how the rest of that trick works.
Brynolf and Young.
I think you did a switch. We didn't do a switch.
Yeah.
Oh, well then,
West, I think you did a switch. Didn't do a switch.
Yeah. Like every person that fools them, with the exception of Nick Einhorn.
Yeah, Nick Einhorn. I can't tell you why. I can't tell you how you did it. Why? Because
I don't want to break
magic for people.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin this.
Yeah.
But everyone else is like, I think you did this because it looked like you did it. No, I didn't actually do it, even though I could have. Oh, right, there you go.
But it's because Penn and Teller, it's their program, and they choose to a certain extent. Obviously, to a certain extent, some people do nail them, but to a certain extent as well. These days, especially, they just decide. They decide. They decide from a gut. It feels like they decide from a gut feeling whether it's for them or not, and that's fine. It's their show. You know, everyone's happy because everyone goes on. Everyone has a lovely time.
They big you up.
They're very, very effusive about how good every act is, no matter what the quality of the act, frankly.
Yeah.
And then off you go. Done. Job's good.
Yeah.
Back home.
Magic is fake, so is TV. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but being on that first series of Fool Us, do you think that was a big help, or not as big as it would be now, since it was starting out, it wasn't really known?
It was a bigger help then in the UK than it would be now, by simple virtue of the fact that television has changed.
Yeah, back then there wasn't Netflix, there wasn't on demand, so
this was 2011, back when floppy disks ran the streets freely.
Yeah. So being primetime Saturday night on TV, I mean, so when that Edinburgh Fringe was our 3rd Fringe.
Right.
Just after that aired, we sold out like that.
It was just an 80-seat room.
Yeah, it was only 80 seats a day. We weren't selling thousands of tickets, and it did raise our profile a bit. But people forget. I mean, so this stuff is good, and you want to capitalize on it while you've got it. But it's not like going on TV once or twice makes you famous. Like we did The Next Great Magician, another TV show on, again, primetime ITV.
Same slot.
Exactly same slot. Saturday
time of
night.
year is in November, I think, rather than...
That's a better time of year.
Yeah, but it is.
Saturday night TV show, and we got nothing.
But it aired in 2016. By which point the way people watch television had changed so drastically.
Right.
In 5 years that no bugger watched it.
Like after that show, like a week after that show, we were still getting recognised as Penn Teller. And we were saying to people, we were on TV
last week,
8 days ago. And they were like, yeah, we were on that Penn Teller show. No. I mean, yes, we were, but that's not what I'm talking about.
Nice. Well, thank you guys so much for just coming and joining me on the podcast and answering all my questions. I've got one more question, though, if you guys have time.
Of course we do. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So this is a question I ask to everyone who comes on here, and it's kind of a thinker, but I want to see if you guys have an answer. What's one opinion you have about magic that you think other magicians might disagree with?
Yeah, so literally, I knew this podcast was coming because if someone invites us on a podcast, I go and listen to all their podcasts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all of our opinions about magic are things that people disagree with, which is why we do something that's so different to what everyone else does.
Straight up, I don't like magic.
Yeah.
I have decided in the last year that I actively dislike magic.
Okay.
I find it very difficult to watch. What I like is watching good performance, whether that's magic or comedy or musical theatre or juggling skill or anything. But I've no interest in magic in particular.
As in itself, like, everything we do is a reaction against the things we dislike in magic. In the podcast you did with Brian Brushwood, he talks about using hate as a muse more than love because it's better for creation, and it's that thing. Like if you want one, we are big believers that longevity does not equal quality, and that just because you've been doing magic a long time doesn't mean you don't suck at it, and just because a trick has lasted a long time doesn't mean it isn't bad.
And kind of similarly, the whole enormous disagreement with the Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours idea, which seems to have caught a bit of a zeitgeist in the magic community more than any other community, because magicians have got a lot of time on their hands to read stuff. But I know, like, you can spend 10,000 hours doing something, and if you're not doing it right, you will still be bad at it at the end of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I can spend 10,000 hours baking, and if I continue baking the way I bake at the moment, I will still have bread of exactly the same quality after 10,000 hours as the bread I make now.
I've been making myself dinner for the last 10 years. I'm not calling that shit.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's all about kind of practicing properly and using your time wisely.
And knowing what it is that makes your magic better. We often say, because we work with magicians on their acts sometimes, and we often say that basically almost any magic act, we could improve any magic act if you give us a day in a space with them, and at no point will we talk about their magic.
Mm-hmm.
In that way, everyone says, you know enough tricks. You do know enough tricks. But
magic is weirdly binary, because magic is, it was a piece of magic or it was not. Because it either was a magic trick and you don't know how it's done, or it was not. There is no middle ground.
A joke can be a bit funny, a trick can't be a bit magic.
So actually, doing a magic trick for an audience, doing a magic trick for the sake of doing a magic trick is very easy. You can either do it or you can't.
Yeah.
Doing it for an audience as part of enjoyment, entertainment, whatever you want to call it, is actually a very different thing. Because the entry level is this a magic trick? Tick. And from then on, you've got this vast expanse ahead of you of what you do with it and how you do it and why you do it. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that matters.
Teller once said, the way to think about it is, what do I have to offer the audience beyond the successful completion of a magic trick? Because so many people seem to get to the point at which their trick is a fooling trick and then stop. But that is the point at which you start writing a magic trick.
Right.
Just knowing the move, and magicians spend all their time practicing moves they never use and tricks they never use because they think that somehow having more sleight of hand skill will make you a better performer, even though you don't use any of those sleights.
You had Matt King on the podcast, and his show is a perfect demonstration of this. Every single one of his tricks is most definitely a magic trick.
Yes.
They are all bloody fooling tricks, including some that I've now watched several times. Like, I still don't know how you're doing it. But they're all so much more than that as well.
Yeah.
It's a show. The entire thing is a show. But a second slightly jokey but also controversial opinion is the Omni deck is one of the worst things created.
Oh, yeah.
So
the Omni deck has got a lot to answer for.
The Omni deck's got a lot to answer for. And I've argued with quite a lot of quite well-known magicians about that one, including Piff the Magic Dragon.
Yeah.
Many years ago, and yeah, I think it's awful. So, because it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Makes no sense.
Magic should make sense.
Yeah.
Why does it turn into a block of plastic? Well, that's in my pocket, isn't it? I've got one on me.
Just what I've got.
I've got white. The other person bought one. He said it was good. Gets good reaction. Don't care, mate.
Yeah.
Absolutely don't care. We're quite crotchety about magic.
But I really believe, again, like in the one you with Brian, I really believe that part of the reason that we have had the success we've had and developed the kind of show that we've developed is because we look at so much magic and go, I can do better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I can do better than that is by not doing what everyone's telling me to do.
Right. Yeah, and I think in Piv's episode, he said something very similar to that about if you want to do magic, just do it. Don't listen to advice, just do it.
Yeah, do it. Just do it and find. You have to do stuff that, I mean, obviously this is tautologically some advice, but you have to find. You're going to get the most out of it if you do the stuff that you want to do, and if you do the stuff that you want to see being done. So if you want to see really knacky sleight of hand card tricks being done, because that's what you enjoy doing, do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If you want to do stuff that resonates a certain way with an audience, do that. If you want to spend time doing a bunch of kids magic and sucker tricks, do that.
Yeah. So if you basically want to be a stand-up comedian who does magic tricks, do that. Like, be the magic that you want to see in the world.
And know why. Make the decision consciously. Don't just do it because it's been done, or because that's the path well trodden. Like, make a conscious decision on it all.
All right. Well, that's great. Thank you guys. Again, just thank you guys so much for joining me on here.
You're welcome. Thanks for getting up early.
Yeah, sorry. Sorry about the time difference.
Yeah, it's
We're
not.
currently sat in a very wet, cold, and rainy Oxford. So.
Yeah, it's it just snowed yesterday here, so it's pretty cold.
Yeah. Oh, don't much snow. None of that.
Yeah. Well,
It's difficult to get to gigs.